Alrighty. So as we're waiting, you can just make sure you have all your equipment out in front of you. At the very start of class, when we have everyone join in, I'll go through a quick list to make sure we have everything. At the moment, we should have our canola oil in the fridge. So I hope everyone did that. So we can leave it in the fridge for now. That is no problem. We'll grab that later on in the class, but just want to make sure everyone had that in the fridge. I put mine in last night, but maybe some people put it in this morning, which is fine. So first of all, welcome to iCook After School and our STEAM classes. We're kind of run these every few weeks, so you can join along. We can almost put on our scientist hats and explore as well something called molecular gastronomy, and that's like a big word, but basically it just means science with food. Okay, so if you go to chefs in restaurants, you know, bakers, cooks, everything with food is like a science. Okay, so today we're going to do a science experiment, but it's going to be with food and something we can eat afterwards. Okay, so it's a really fun experiment that we're going to do today. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to run through some of our equipment, our ingredients that we're going to use today, and you can just do a little checkbox in your brain to make sure you have everything. Okay, so the first thing that was needed, maybe you put it in last night or this morning, is 2 cups of canola oil I used in the fridge. So it's really, really important that it was refrigerated for at least 4 hours, or you could have put it overnight. So I'll show you mine. We don't need to take it out just yet, but here you can see mine. Also for this experiment, it is important that it's in some sort of a glass or maybe a jar, so that what we're going to do, it has to fall through the glass. So instead of having maybe it's a low lunchbox or a container, it is important that's in a jug or a glass that has a little bit of height to it. So that's our first thing. Okay. Now the second thing you're going to need is some measuring cups or measuring spoons, or you might have measuring jugs. Okay, because we're going to be measuring some things. Now, the next thing you're going to need is some sort of juice. Okay, you might have orange juice, you might have like mango juice, whatever you have, this is going to be almost our flavor that we're going to be eating. Okay, I don't want to give away too much just yet. Perfect, I see some apple juice there. Excellent. Okay, fantastic. And this is fun. Later on, once we've done the experiment, you can do this all over again, but choose a different flavor, different juice, something like that. Perfect. Okay, the next thing we need, which is important, we need some sort of a squeeze bottle, or a dropper or a syringe or something like that that can almost drop little droplets of liquid. So anything like that, doesn't have to be this exact squeezer. You can kind of be creative. Perfect. Excellent. Okay. Next thing we need is gelatin. Does anyone know what gelatin is, or maybe someone's used it at home before and what it is? Excellent. I see Sadie. You want to unmute yourself and maybe let me know if you've heard of it before, maybe you've used it.
Gelatin is a type of substance that it is a solid, and you can eat it.
Excellent. So you can eat it, and it almost has this protein in it, and it's like protein from collagen from, like, you can get it's in animals, it's in humans, but when you break up those protein strings, and then they'll solidify once they kind of soak in some liquid, and they'll kind of make some cool shapes. So sometimes it's used in desserts like cheesecake. You know, the way cheesecake is kind of solid, and sometimes it can be a little bit jelly-like. So it's used in some baking items like that. You just need 1 sachet of that. Okay, we're nearly through our list. Now next you'll need some sort of, I'm just using glass jars. You might have a glass container, because we are going to be heating up something in the microwave. So some sort of, maybe it's a glass jar, a jug, whatever it is. And if you have 2 of them, okay, yes, Rylan, is it? You can unmute yourself.
I don't have a microwave.
You don't? Okay, no worries. So if you have an adult in the perfect, let's get thumbs up, you can use a saucepan on the stove instead. So you can get that ready, okay? Because basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to be melting something, okay? So no worries. That's the alternative for you. Perfect. Okay, so and then lastly, some other large glass or jar. So really you need 3 glasses or 3 jars, whatever you might have. Okay? Perfect. And then last but not least, we're going to need some sort of a strainer. Okay, like a sieve or a strainer with a bowl, okay? So it's going to go over like a bowl, or maybe it's some Tupperware, anything at all that's going to catch liquid underneath. Maybe it's a pot, anything at all that you might have. And that is our list. We got thumbs up, we got everything. Super. And if we don't, and you have to grab something in the middle of class, that's no worries at all. We have time to do that. All right. Okay. Who wants to get started? Everyone have their scientist hats on? Put them on. Ready to go. I love it. Perfect. Okay. Now, with scientists or maybe engineers or all those professions, you might get things right the first time. But it's important to test and make predictions and observations, okay? So later on in the class, we're going to be maybe making some predictions and then seeing what the result is. Predictions. Who can help me with that big word? What does predictions mean? Maybe you can simplify it for me. Nate, you can unmute yourself.
A prediction is when you guess something and then you see if it's right.
Excellent. And does it matter if your prediction is not right, Nate?
No.
No, exactly, because that's what it's about. Maybe you don't get it right, but you have to think what is going to happen. And like you said, it's a guess. Guesses are neither right or wrong. It's just all part of being through these experiments and these scientists. Okay, let's get started. So everyone there are 2 cups of olive oil or canola oil or whatever oil you have in the fridge. Next thing we are going to do is get our tablespoon measurement, okay? And I don't want to give away too much of what's going to happen yet today, but I'll explain at the end. Let's see. I'll give a hint, first of all. Has anyone ever eaten, they're almost like little jelly-like small little circles, and they almost burst in your mouth. Has anyone eaten those? They're kind of like little jellos. Give me a thumbs up if you've eaten those before. Okay, and they're like fruity little bursts, and they're kind of like hard, not hard on the outside, but they almost have this shell on the outside. But then you kind of bite into them, and they explode in your mouth. And you can get lots of different fruit flavors. So would you be excited if I was to say we're going to make those today? Are we excited? Yes. Okay. Okay. So we're going to put in 2 tablespoons of juice, whatever juice you have, into one of your containers. So one of your glass jars or whatever you have. 2 tablespoons of juice. Okay? So let's do it together. And when you're measuring, it's really important. So be careful as well. You might, if it's heavy, or might just spill. It's important to measure all the way to the top. So that's 1. Okay. And 2. Okay. All right, everyone, that's done. Give me a thumbs up. Super. Okay, the next thing, we are going to get that gelatin. So remember we said it's like made of protein, collagen, okay? And this is what's going to be our key ingredient to make those little like marble bursts, okay? So let's open up this packet, put it into that 2 tablespoons of juice, and we're going to stir it with a spoon for 20 seconds. We're going to stir, stir, stir. So you might see it's getting a little bit lumpy. Okay. We're just going to stir, stir, stir. I'll show you what this looks like right now. It's kind of thick, goopy. Okay. Perfect. Okay. Now, we leave that to the side. We're going to come back to that. Pick up your second jar. Or in your case, Rylan, this is going to go into your pot. Okay? This is where you're going to need help from the adults in your house. Perfect. Okay. We're going to put a quarter of a cup of juice into the other empty jar. So remember, we have 2 jars. We're going to put a quarter cup into this jar. Now, this is what's going to go into the microwave. So make sure whatever you're using is microwave safe, okay? And Rylan, what you can do with adults in the room is you can start to heat up that juice on the hob. And we want to just not get it to boiling, but it's almost going to steam. So it might take you a little bit longer than the microwave, but that's not to worry. So you can start doing that now. So a quarter cup goes into your pot, or in our case, a quarter cup goes into our microwave. Now, for into the microwave, this is the important step. We do not want this juice to boil. We just want it to almost get steamy. So we want it to get hot. So we're going to first put it in the microwave for 15 seconds, okay? Then we're going to take it out and stir. Okay, so I'm going to do this with you. 15 seconds. Here we go. Okay, and then after 15 seconds, you take it out and you stir it. And you can see it's starting to get warm, but not warm enough. So you stir it, put it back in for another 15 seconds, okay? Another 15 seconds. And this is going to get the juice hot, and then it's going to help us dissolve. So it's going to melt that gelatin that we have in our other jar, okay? All right. Give it one more stir, so that's a total of 30 seconds. I can start to see it getting hot. Everyone's microwave is different, so have a look to see if you see any steam coming out. Okay, be careful as well, the glass might be hot, so make sure you have an adult around. You're going to put that hot liquid into the other jar with the gelatin. So that it's kind of goopy and thick right now. So you're going to pour that in. Be very, very careful because this juice is hot. Okay. And once that juice is in with the goopy gelatin, you're going to stir, okay? And watch it as it dissolves. So it's not going to be lumpy. It's going to melt, okay? That's why it's important for the juice to be hot, okay? And it's breaking down all that protein. Remember I said the protein right in it? There's like strings of protein in that gelatin, and it's unraveling as it's heated up, okay? So basically heat is what melts and what kind of unravels those protein strings in this gelatin. So keep stirring. We gotta stir for about 1 minute. How many seconds is there in a minute? Does anyone know? How many seconds is in a minute? Nate, I saw that hand fire up. Do you want to share?
60 seconds.
Excellent, super. There is 60 seconds in a minute. So we're going to stir, stir, stir. Okay. You want to make sure there's no lumps. Remember it was really goopy before? Now all I'm seeing is just, ooh, kind of a liquid. None of that gelatin lumps. So I think I'm good. Make sure you get all that. It's all dissolved, okay? Perfect. Now I'm going to do this step just for, so you can see things clearly at the end. I'm going to add a tiny little bit of food coloring dye. You don't need to do this, but maybe if you're doing this experiment again and you want to make maybe pink kind of juice balls or green, and if you have food coloring you can. I'm just going to do it so you can see it easier on the screen. So I'm going to add a little bit of red. And food coloring is really concentrated, So you don't need a lot. So I'm just gonna add 2 and watch mine as it turns red, just so you'll see it easier. Okay. Now what we're gonna do is get those squeeze bottles, or maybe you have some sort of syringe or whatever you have, and with maybe the help, or you might want to do it over a bowl so you don't spill it. But we're gonna put our mixture, into our squeeze bottle, okay? So open it up, and we're gonna put that into our squeeze bottle. Oh, I'm making a little bit of a mess, not too much, okay? Gonna tighten that lid, okay? What we're gonna do with this, we're gonna put it in the fridge for about 5 minutes. And while we're doing that, I'm gonna talk to you a little bit more about our predictions, okay? So when you have it in your squeeze bottle, or maybe it's your syringe, or whatever you have that has the droplets, we're gonna just pop that in the fridge for 5 minutes, okay? You can put it beside your oil if you want this in the fridge. We are gonna be making droplets of that gelatin with our juice into the olive oil. But if it was too hot, it's gonna make the oil heat up too quickly, and that's gonna affect our experiment. Okay, while we're waiting for that, we are going to do one more thing. So remember I said if you had another jar and some oil, we're gonna put more oil into a jar, but we're not gonna put it in the fridge, and we're gonna see what happens with our experiment, okay? Ready, okay, super. And you might have a measuring jug, which is even better for measuring liquid, because you can get down to eye level and see where your line is when you're measuring a cup. Okay, so all we gotta do here is measure a cup of olive oil. You might need more if it's, this is where the jug comes in handy. So I'm gonna pour that in to my jar. I'll even just pour a little bit more, just so there's more height in it, but that's about fine. Okay, perfect. Then we just leave that to the side. Now, here is where I want to do our predictions, okay? Our predictions and our results. What we're going to do is, for the experiment, we're going to use our squeeze bottle and drop little tiny squeezes of our gelatin and juice into the cold olive oil, okay? I want you to, if you have a piece of paper, this is very simple. I'll just write P for predictions or for results, okay? If not, you can do it in your head, that's totally fine. And the first thing I want you to write down or think in your head is, what do you think is going to happen when we drop those little balls, those little juice gelatin balls, into the cold olive oil or the canola oil or whatever oil you have? What do you think is going to happen? Okay, who wants to share? Cole, what do you think is going to happen? You can read it out for me. You want to read it out? I think I can't. You don't? Okay, let's put it up to the screen and I'll read it out. Let's see. Makes a tiny ball. Okay, that's a good prediction. Okay, Ryland, do you want to share?
I think when we drop it into the cold olive oil, it's gonna make a little solid ball.
Okay, good prediction. The next one, Sadie, you can answer this next prediction. So I'm going to ask one more question and then you can answer this one. What do you think is going to happen when we squeeze tiny little droplets of water from the juice and gelatin into the room temperature olive oil or canola oil or whatever oil you have? So this one isn't cold. What do you think is going to happen? Sadie.
I think that it'll just go to the bottom.
What will go to the bottom? The juice?
The water.
Oh, the juice and gelatin?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, the water and the room temperature oil.
Oh, okay. Anyone else? Thanks for that prediction. Okay. Well, those are our 2 questions, and that's what we're trying to explore and investigate today. Okay. So what we're going to do next is we are going to get out our cold oil and our squeeze bottle. Okay, so can everyone go back to the fridge? And in this case, if you did have a glass, it's kind of important that there's a bit of height to it, okay? And the reason it's important that we have height is because the droplets will hit the cold oil and something's going to happen as it travels, okay? Now, before we squeeze this in, there's a little bit, oh yes, Raylan?
Mine is in this. Should I pour it in a cup?
No, that's perfect. The jug is fine. That's perfect. As long as it just wasn't in like a flat bowl, which is perfect. And yes, Elise?
So is this good enough? Like, is this high enough?
Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. Okay. So what we're going to do, so I just want everyone to watch first. So I'm going to come forward a little bit and push down my camera so you can see. Okay? So what we're going to do is, I'm going to do it first. And what we're going to do is slowly drop the bottles in, okay? You want to try not drop the droplets beside each other. Try spread them out, okay? And you don't want to squeeze it in, so you got to be very slowly and give it some time, okay? So I want everyone to try that and see what happens. So everyone, off you go. You just drop a few droplets. Don't put it all in yet because it needs some time. And then watch what happens. Does anyone see what's happening? So that's what we're going to do. We're just going to keep dropping just a few droplets in and see what happens. Now I want everyone to pause. Once you have a few droplets in your, oh wow, okay, I'm seeing some cool things happening. Raylan, what's happening? You want to unmute yourself and maybe explain what's happening to yours? Yeah, you want to unmute yourself, Raylan? What's happening?
Like one big one and it just like fell.
Yeah, so you got to try do little ones and kind of spread them out. Yeah, that's fun. Experiment. See what happens if you join them together and see what happens too. Did you do little ones too? Okay, good. Now, I want everyone to take a pause. That's the cold one. Can everyone take the room temperature oil? Now let's do it in the room temperature and see what happens. Let's squeeze our gelatin. It's kind of, mine are not really forming round circular balls. They're kind of gloopy, they're kind of flat. So what the experiment here is important to know is that the oil has to be cold, okay? The oil has to be cold because the hot gelatin, once it hits the cold oil, it starts to solidify. And this is something called, this is a big fancy word and it's called spherification. Think of the word sphere. This is kind of what we've done. Does anyone know what shape a sphere is? Sadie.
It's a 3D circle.
Excellent, great explanation. It's a 3D circle like a football, you might be like a globe. And that's what we've done here is spherification. We've turned a liquid into a solid sphere. So that's your big term to learn today. But what has happened in my olive oil is, I don't think if you can see it, see at the very bottom, it's just like a red gloopy blob, and that's the room temperature one. It's kind of gloopy. It didn't really, when it first put it in, it turned into a sphere, but then once it got to the bottom, it just kind of turned into a flat pancake. So it's important to know that it has to be cold, okay? And you can experiment and see if you can make big spheres, if you can make small ones. But what's the second important thing to know is that oil and water won't mix. So that's why we're using oil. So oil and water won't mix. They don't really like each other. They always separate, okay? So that's why we're putting this into oil. Now, how are we going to taste these? Okay, so very quickly, we're going to get, remember our strainer and our bowl? And if you can see, can everyone see at the bottom of my glass? There's like tiny little balls or little marble or little juice balls at the bottom. But if you're like me, I'm curious what they taste like, okay? So what we're gonna do is make sure you have a bowl or something underneath and some sort of a strainer, and you're gonna slowly pour the olive oil. Okay, it's catching underneath, and then I'm hoping I'll put it down so you can see. I'm hoping all of my little balls are going to get caught in this strainer. Oh, here they come! They're coming! And some of them are stuck at the bottom. Let's see. I'm going to get a little spoon. See if I can scoop these guys out. Oh, wow. Look at these on the spoon. Tiny little balls. Okay, there's a few more left of the glass, and you can just kind of scoop them out. Now, we're not going to taste these just yet. Does anyone know why we mightn't taste these just yet? We got to maybe rinse these off because they might have a taste of oil on the outside. So the very last thing we do before we end this class is we got to rinse these off. You can put them in another bowl, rinse some water over them, and then we can taste them. So I just rinsed a little bit of water. You can even dunk them in a little bit of water. And chefs will do this in restaurants. They'll do this to add texture. So texture is what it feels like. So they'll do this to add texture, because remember they kind of pop in your mouth. They'll do it to add flavor. And they'll also do it for appearance. So that means to make something like look pretty. So it might be a garnish on top of a dessert. Okay, so mine are rinsed off. I'll show you the spoon, and I'm going to taste these and see if you could taste the juice that you use. So I'm going to give you a close-up. And I'm going to try them. Does anyone want to try them with me? See, Sadie's going to try them. Okay. Sadie's giving a thumbs up. Raylan, you did good. Excellent. And you can have fun with this. You can make different colored ones with different juices. Maybe do what I did, add food dye. So you can make tiny ones. Try make strings. You can have lots of fun. But remember, the oil must be cold. My oil was out for a while. You can put some ice around it. Maybe put some ice packs. It's really important that it's cold and that it comes from a hot, because it solidifies, so it gets solid as it goes through the oil and hits the bottom. Okay? Now my oil, because we put it, strained it through the bowl, you can keep that, and you can do the experiment again later on and maybe show someone else. If you had any difficulty, remember, it has to be cold. You have to add tiny droplets so that it has time, and just try it out. Scientists don't get things right the first time, so just try it out. Sadie, before we go, have you something you'd like to say?
Is it okay if it's just a bit cold?
Yeah, so try make it as cold as possible, and as long as it's in the fridge. It mightn't, it has to, because the gelatin is hot. When it hits the oil, when hot meets cold, it's going to harden and it's going to solidify. But if it's only a little cold, it mightn't harden all the way, and then your little gel balls mightn't form. So it is important that it's really cold, okay? And maybe a little quick trick is you can pop it in the freezer for maybe 20 minutes, but just be careful if you're using certain oils, they do harden. So, but have fun with it. Thanks everyone, and I hope everyone has a great day and enjoys their little juice balls or our little marbles. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.